Welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you the top 9 hacks that shook the world. Be sure to hit the notification bell and subscribe button. Like, share, and leave a comment in the Q&A section of the video. Without further ado, let's get into today's video.
Stuxnet is a new type of weapon, a digital worm, and it was used in the first cyber attack known to have caused physical damage in the real world. While they have not admitted to it, the United States and Israel allegedly created Stuxnet in order to slow Iran's effort to build nuclear weapons. The worm targeted the computers that ran the machines used to turn uranium into nuclear fuel. The Stuxnet worm spun many of the centrifuges out of control, blowing them up, all without the Iranians figuring out what was causing the explosions. Eventually, though, Stuxnet got loose and spread across the world, infecting computers in more than 100 countries. The worm was quickly noticed, and the operation publicly exposed. Cyber experts were alarmed by Stuxnet and feared its potential for destruction. While this worm only attacked specific equipment related to Iran's centrifuges, experts fear that the same digital technology could be used to manipulate the computers that run a huge swath of industrial activity and infrastructure projects, like factories, dams, and electrical grids. Disrupting or destroying any of them could cause enormous physical damage and could potentially kill large numbers of people. This has led some to suggest that cyber weapons have the potential to be weapons of mass destruction. And just as international treaties were created to control nuclear weapons, many countries and individuals are calling for treaties to control the use of cyber weapons. But that is unlikely to happen anytime soon, because cyber weapons pose unique challenges. They're often designed to be covert, so victims may not even realize that they were hit by a cyber attack. For example, while the Stuxnet worm was destroying the centrifuges, it sent false information to the Iranian scientists' equipment, pretending that everything was operating normally. Even if victims do discover that they were attacked, they may not be able to determine who attacked them, because hackers can mask their identities and cover their digital tracks. This makes it harder to enforce potential cyber weapon rules because countries may not know whom to attribute a violation to, and as a result, may not know who to punish. On top of these challenges, there's no international consensus on what the cyber rules would even be. And so, without any rules, countries are building up their cyber defenses, making it harder for cyber attacks to succeed. But there's no perfect defense against a cyber attack. For example, the Iranian nuclear facility was underground and air-gapped, completely cut off from the internet. So those who wanted to damage the Iranian program couldn't sneak Stuxnet into the facility online. Nevertheless, they targeted the hardware suppliers for the facility and put it on their electronic equipment, which eventually made its way into the nuclear facility. This infiltration tactic makes it near impossible to completely protect any system from cyber attacks. With globalized supply chains, every country is vulnerable to foreign cyber weapons. So many focus on building resiliency, making sure that important systems and infrastructure can quickly recover after a cyber attack. And countries are also racing to develop stronger cyber weapons, hoping to deter.
We've got a Hollywood whodunit to tell you about tonight. The FBI has been looking into a major computer breach at Sony Pictures for the past 2 weeks. But Friday, the hacking took an ominous turn as several employees received threatening emails. Here's Carter Evans.
CBS News has confirmed that some Sony Pictures employees are concerned after receiving a rambling email yesterday written in broken English. It asked them to sign a statement cutting ties with Sony. If you don't, the email said, not only you, but your family will be in danger. The message claimed to be from the head of a group calling itself Guardians of Peace, which has taken responsibility for a series of hacks against Sony. The attacks began on November 24th when this image popped onto nearly 4,000 company computer screens. Hackers stole sensitive corporate documents and erased hard drives. Computer security firm Identity Finder analyzed the data hackers released online and found more than 47,000 social security numbers, including current and former Sony employees, as well as personal information of celebrities like Sylvester Stallone and director Judd Apatow. Sony has declined to comment, but the FBI confirms it's now investigating, saying recent events underscore the persistence and maliciousness of harmful cyber criminals. The agency won't say who may be responsible. CBS News reported earlier this week the computer code used in the initial attack on Sony was written in Korean, adding to speculation that North Korea may be behind the attack. The country is denying any involvement. As the plot thickens, the consequences are becoming all too real. Carter Evans, CBS.
Now, with that massive security breach possibly putting 143 million Americans at risk, hackers targeting credit monitoring company Equifax, and now the FBI is investigating, and Rebecca Jarvis is here with all the details. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning to you, Michael. And this is one of the largest data breaches in history. It happened at Equifax, the company that tracks all your credit cards and mortgages to determine your credit score. Half of all Americans potentially exposed, their highly sensitive personal information now in the hands of hackers.
This morning, 143 million consumers potentially hit in a massive data breach of credit monitoring company Equifax. The hackers accessing highly sensitive information, including social security numbers, birth dates, addresses, even some driver's license numbers, as well as credit card numbers for approximately 209,000 Americans.
The problem is that the social security number is the skeleton key to our identities. And when that's stolen, we're in a position where we're going to have to be looking over our shoulders for the rest of our lives.
Equifax is one of 3 companies that tracks everything from your payments on credit cards, mortgages, student and credit loans, to utilities to determine your credit score. What Equifax knows and reports about you decides whether you get a loan and how much you pay. But unlike previous data breaches, many may not even be aware they're customers of Equifax, since Equifax gets its information from banks, credit card companies, and lenders, not consumers themselves. The unauthorized access happening between mid-May and July of this year.
Equifax says it will mail consumers who've been affected. They've also set up a website, EquifaxSecurity2017.com, to help you determine if you've been impacted. You can also sign up there for credit monitoring and identity theft protection. But Michael, you know, once this number gets out, it's out. And when in the hands of a bad actor, it's a real big problem. You're always looking over your shoulder, and the most important thing is to act now. Make sure as a consumer you know what's happening with your information.
Here's what you need to know about the ransomware that's been dubbed WannaCry. Security experts say this is one of the worst and most widespread pieces of malware they've ever seen, especially because it's even caused some hospitals in the UK to have to cancel outpatient appointments. So what exactly happens to infected computers, and how big is this? The ransomware actually locks up all the files in your computer and demands $300 in Bitcoin in order to regain control. People are seeing this message all around the world, and researchers say they've seen tens of thousands of infections in about 100 countries. Researchers say this is spreading through a Windows weakness known as Eternal Blue, which Microsoft released a patch for last month. This ransomware is actually just going through the internet looking through vulnerable computers, according to cybersecurity firm Malwarebytes. That means you don't even have to click a phishing email to get infected. How can you protect yourself? Well, you know those seemingly annoying security updates for Microsoft Windows? If you've installed the latest one, you're safe. If you haven't, do it right away. For now, that's about it. Who's responsible? Researchers aren't pointing their fingers yet, but the most amount of attacks so far have been in Taiwan, Ukraine, and Russia, according to Avast. Former NSA contractor Edward Snowden tweeted, "If the NSA had privately disclosed the flaw used to attack these hospitals when they found it, not when they lost it, this may not have happened." And that's being echoed by experts we're talking to. The scariest part about this ransomware? It's still spreading.
Preliminary indications suggest that the scope and scale of this incident are beyond any that we've confronted as a nation, and its implications are significant.
Information technology company SolarWinds was found to be the target of a massive cybersecurity attack in December. The company's Orion software had been compromised, and the breach went undetected for at least 9 months. It had exposed 18,000 computer networks around the world to malicious code. The hackers used a supply chain attack to send a virus into the system, which spread to the company's clients through software updates that created a way for them to gain access to sensitive data.
Imagine almost a secret door into your house, and the first thing that happens when they come through that secret door is all your keys are right there. They just grab them, and now they can get into any locks you have in your house.
The president of Microsoft called it the largest and most sophisticated attack the world has ever seen.
When we analyzed everything that we saw at Microsoft, we asked ourselves, how many engineers had probably worked on these attacks? And the answer we came to was, well, certainly more than 1,000.
Among those affected by the hack were thousands of private organizations, including tech corporations such as Microsoft, Intel, and Cisco. U.S. government agencies, including the Treasury, Homeland Security, and others were also affected. Cybersecurity analysts say an attack like this could be used to access government data, intelligence reports, employee information, and email accounts. The true scope of the attack is unknown, as analysts are still trying to figure out how much information has been leaked, but they say it could take months to identify which systems were compromised and expel the hackers.
We've never been left with a breach like that before, where we know months into it that we're only looking at the tip of the iceberg.
The U.S. has accused the Russian intelligence service of orchestrating the attack. They say it resembles the techniques used against Ukraine in 2017. But Russia denies any involvement in the SolarWinds hack. The attacks are continuing to this day as government agencies try to secure their systems. The hack has demonstrated how vulnerable governments are to this type of cybersecurity breach.
A reused password might not feel like a big security hole until it leads to a state of emergency. Colonial Pipeline is one of the largest oil pipelines in the U.S., moving refined fuel to industry markets from Texas to New Jersey. It made headlines in May 2021 when it became the victim of a ransomware attack by a group identified as DarkSide. This attack infected some of the pipeline's computer systems, forcing the company to shut the pipeline down for several days. This caused gas shortages in some East Coast states, higher prices at the pump, and President Biden to declare a state of emergency. We'll cover the basics of how this ransomware attack happened and steps taken to restart the pipeline. But this isn't the only ransomware attack that happened in 2021. Learn about some other hacks by clicking the link above or in the description below. So, what is a ransomware attack? Ransomware is a type of malware that blocks access to an organization's data or computer systems until a ransom is paid, usually in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the ransom of choice for hackers due to the mistaken belief that the currency cannot be traced. This is the type of attack hackers chose to launch on Colonial Pipeline's computer systems. On May 6, attackers gained access to the Colonial Pipeline network through an exposed VPN password, stealing 100 gigabytes of data that they later threatened to leak onto the internet. During a House committee hearing in June, investigators said a Colonial Pipeline employee likely used this password in another location too, exposing it during a different data breach. On May 7th, the ransomware attack began and the pipeline operations ceased. Attackers demanded a ransom of 75 bitcoins, worth $4.4 million, which Colonial Pipeline paid to regain access to their systems. 5 days later, on May 12th, Colonial Pipeline restarted operations. On June 7th, a month after Colonial Pipeline paid the ransom, the U.S. Department of Justice recovered most of it, 63.7 bitcoins, worth $2.3 million. Is your organization revisiting policies and procedures to minimize the risk of a ransomware attack? Why or why not? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and be sure to hit that like button too.
May 5th, 2000. A very average day for the very average business supervisor. Though in just a couple of hours, it would quickly turn into a day of utter chaos and turmoil. Nearly every install of brand new computer software damaged beyond repair. Over 13,000 pieces of malware detected in just one office building, and soon, over $20 billion in damage seen all across the world. What happened? These catastrophic events were the work of a new computer worm that was circulating the internet. ILOVEYOU. Quite an ironic name, but it was derived from the fact that the worm would disguise itself as a love letter coming from a secret admirer. The worm would eventually enter the Guinness Book of World Records as the most virulent computer virus of all time. What exactly allowed it to cause this much damage, and how did it work? The virus originated in the Philippines and was created by two programmers, Onel de Guzman and his friend Riano Ramones. It was allegedly developed by taking other pieces of malicious software found online and putting them all together. The success of the virus relied on Visual Basic scripting, commonly seen as a .vbs file, and the gullibility of non-tech-savvy computer users who used Windows' new feature of hiding file extensions by default. The brand new OS, Windows 2000, was the first version of Windows to implement this change. The option to hide file extensions goes all the way back to Windows 95, but users had to turn this on voluntarily. Microsoft made this change to increase convenience for their end users, but as a result, also created the golden opportunity for malware developers. This was something that they could greatly take advantage of, and here's how. Recipients of the ILOVEYOU worm would receive an email from someone in their Microsoft Outlook contact list, reading as follows: "Kindly check the attached love letter coming from me." The actual worm was listed as an attachment, and the name of the file shows exactly how the creators carried this out. Although the file ends in .vbs, the extension .txt is delusively added to the file name. When average Windows 2000 users downloaded this file, it would appear as only .txt on the desktop, giving the impression that it was a genuine text file. This alone is why the virus mostly affected computers with Windows 2000, but earlier versions like 95 and 98 could still get infected, as those who didn't hide file extensions and saw the .vbs at the end just chose to ignore it. The moment the file was actually opened, it would perform the following tasks. It would make multiple copies of itself, some of them hiding in parts of the directory, and others replacing and hiding personal files such as .mp3s, JPEGs, and other script types. It would also modify Windows registry keys, compromising the basic structure of the operating system. It would then send itself to everyone in your email contact list. At the same time, it would create a file called winbugsfix.exe, which would steal passwords from the user despite its misleading name. The worm's ability to cause mass destruction was also attributed to its design. Being a Visual Basic script, it was super easy for a user to access the source code and do whatever they wanted to with it. While ILOVEYOU was not the first email worm, It made some big changes from previous ones that would cause it to be the most recognized. A similar virus from the year before, known as Melissa, would mass mail itself to the first 50 people in your contact list. ILOVEYOU would send it to everyone, allowing it to spread exponentially. Guzman and Ramones were arrested and promptly investigated by Philippines' National Bureau of Investigation. It was revealed that Guzman had been working on a program designed to steal passwords for his college thesis. When it was rejected, he dropped out. ILOVEYOU was very similar to this program and was likely created as a pastime project, as Guzman claimed that he may have released the worm unintentionally. Since there were no official anti-malware laws at the time, all charges were dropped, and Guzman and Ramones were released scot-free. Antivirus laws were created immediately after, allowing the nefarious doings of ILOVEYOU to remain as an infamous part of computer history. So I am going to be doing a demonstration of how the virus actually works. This was made possible by YouTube user DanOOCT1, who made a very informative video on this topic. I highly suggest you check him out. This will be a very similar demonstration, but I, nonetheless, wanted to try this out for myself. It is currently Friday, May 5th, 2000. On my computer, I am running Windows 2000, and on my desktop, I have included some files for the virus to overwrite. I have an audio file, which is completely functional, and just a standard image. I'm going to open my Microsoft Outlook and check my email. Looks like I have something in my inbox. Well, this looks interesting. Kindly check the attached love letter coming from me. I guess someone wants to share some undisclosed feelings that they have about me. Let's go ahead and download that. As you can see, if I turn off the default setting to hide file extensions, the .vbs is here very clearly. But since I have it turned on, I have no idea. This is just an ordinary text file, and I'm curious to see what's inside. As you can now see, everyone in my contact list has now been sent a copy of this script. In addition, the files that I showed you earlier have now been overwritten. They're gone. Even if I revert back to the original file extension, nothing. You can probably see why this was such an issue for businesses, as important files would be permanently erased and could only be recovered from a backup if they were so lucky. As mentioned earlier, this virus would only hide some files rather than overwrite them, specifically audio files. As you can see, our MP3 is perfectly fine, just locked away. So, if you were a music producer, you had a much easier way out of this. Remember when I told you that this virus was known for being easily modifiable? Well, I will show you just how simple it is to access the source code. All you have to do is right-click and select Edit. The rest is at your fingertips. Many other programmers who were also emailed the virus could send out their own version, and that's exactly what they did. Some of them showed absolutely no mercy, and rather than destroying files, destroyed the entire operating system. If we replace JS and JSE with EXE and COM, these files will be replaced with the worm. Let's go ahead and restart, shall we? That's too bad. This is not going to be a cheap fix. Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks for watching. Stay tuned because we'll be releasing a video on how to create a free website, get a free domain and hosting, and the pros and cons of each. See you next time.